Hi, what's going on, guys? Welcome to my channel. If you're here, I want to give you my sincere thanks. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. So, there's another video of underrated horror films. And the first one I want to do is a bittersweet one. Um, and that's going to be 1988's The Blob. Directed by Chuck Russell, who unfortunately recently had passed away. Now, horror wise, he also directed Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. If I'm not mistaken, he was tagged to direct a remake of, was it Warlock? I think it may have been Warlock. 1980s horror film. Actually, I've never seen Warlock. I've heard good things. I heard it's a good 80s film. I mean, yeah, most people I've heard talk about it say it's not a great film per se, but it's a great 80s film. So, but go back to The Blob. Horror remakes can have they have somewhat of a tumultuous relationship with horror fans. There are those that people love. There are those that people think are gratuitous, and there are those that truly do what a remake is supposed to do. There are certain films that were made in a place and time, and they were good ideas, they were good concepts, but they weren't necessarily made in the right time and needed an update, or whether it be in acting or special effects. The original Blob with Steve McQueen is a perfect example. Good concept, fun film, but it needed an update. And this was an update. It updated that film perfectly. It updated it where it needed to be updated and improved upon the things that needed to be improved upon. And this is just a really fun movie. Kevin Dillon's in this. And I think what makes this film so special to me is back in the day when I was in high school, it used to be a website. Well, it still is a website, but not. It's a shelf its former self called Arrow in the Head Reviews, and John Fallon was the main person. Was the main reviewer. It was his. Website. And I remember I would read the reviews, and I loved reading them, and I didn't agree with all of them. I didn't think all of them were aligned with how I thought personally, but for the most part, I found a lot of cool movies off his recommendation. Perfect Blue was one of them. There's so many I can't even remember them now. All of them that. Jesus, what's his name? Hardware was another film that he praised that I looked that I sought. Um, Based on his recommendation, and that movie turned out to be one of my favorites, all-time favorite films. And introduced me to Richard Stanley, who I think is a phenomenal director. So, hi Terry. Terry, can you please move? Thank you. And another one of those films that he recommended or that he gave high praise to was The Blob. And I watched it and I fell in love with it. I think it's such a great creature feature. I think it's such a great film. The twist that it's not a alien life form, but it's military made biological weapon, I think was super clever. And the ending, the not twist, but the ending that was kind of a cliffhanger, I guess you can say, where the local priest had a piece of the blob in his jar. So I think that was pretty cool. But I just love this movie. I think it's such a great 80s film. And this is what remix is supposed to do. Take a movie, had a good concept, a good idea, maybe not necessarily the budget or the special effects at the time to really make it come to life, and redo it in a way that's more up to date. And this movie still holds up perfectly. Next, Splice. This is a movie that is an eclectic film. It blends horror, sci-fi, creature feature. Um, it has Adrian Brody in it, and it's borders erotic thriller. There's a lot of sex in this movie, and it's not necessarily sexy, if that makes any sense. It's kind of disturbing, but I think it's an interesting concept. And the ending, there's a huge spoilers, but this movie, I mean, you gotta talk spoilers. So they mix a plethora of different species, including human, to create this new life form, and it grows and it becomes this humanoid. And she basically seduces Adrian Brody to have sex with her, even though they've kind of had this father daughter relationship. That's what makes it so weird. So she turns violent. They try to bring her down, and then she changes sex. She goes from a female to a male, and then she forces themselves upon Adrian Brody's colleague, um, who is a woman. Eventually, is killed. And then we see at the end, because they work for this big um, company. She's pregnant with this child, and they want her to bring it, to basically give birth to it, so they can study it and see how it interacts with human, DNA, being that she's a human being with this, you know, basically made up species having impregnated her. So I thought it was disturbing and weird, and yeah, it definitely is a strange film, but I definitely worth a watch. I think the creature effects in here are pretty good. I think the story is interesting. On almost like a another one of those. How far will you go for science? How far will you go in the name of discovery? And how many of your morals will you push aside for that? So I think that's really interesting. And I always love movies like that, and stories like that. That's why I love Frankenstein, one of my favorite one of my favorite stories of our time, because it is about how far are you willing to go for discovery? How far are you willing to pursue science, even that science is terrifying and disturbing? I think this movie really plays with that, ideological view, because there are plenty of times when especially Adrian Brody, ironically enough, is like, let's terminate this. This is going too far, and she's like, no, 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 no. We have to allow it to. We have to see how far this can go, and how dedicated you are to big companies, because it's that big company who eventually convinces her to bring this baby to term. So I think this is a very interesting film and concept in that regard. So next, Bubba Hotep by Don Cascarelli. I remember I had a girl, a friend of mine's girlfriend. We were all friends, and we talked about horror films a lot. And this was in high school, and she told me about Bubba Hotep, and I said, "Well, what's that?" And she told me the premise. I said, "That sounds fucking stupid. I'm not gonna watch that." And even on Arrow, he gave us like a just rave review. I'm like, what is everyone smoking? This sounds like a stupid, idiotic, just moronic idea. Elvis Presley versus a cowboy mummy with a black dude who says he's John F. Kennedy. Nothing about this sounded normal. Nothing about this sounded right. It just it I'm this that simply put, this is fucking stupid. But one day I finally gave in. I said, you know what? I'll watch the damn thing. Why not? I'll probably watch it. I'll probably hate it, and I'll probably hate myself for ever buying this stupid movie and this stupid DVD. But fuck it, I'll do it. I was fully prepared to hate this movie. I was fully prepared to just scream the biggest I knew it in the entire world. I knew this movie was stupid. I knew this wouldn't work. I knew this was a fucking bad idea. I was ready. What I wasn't prepared for is the heart, the sincerity, and the surprisingly touching film that unfolded before me. What I was not prepared for is to actually tear up in the end. What I was not prepared for is to see Bruce Campbell get one of his best performances. What I'm not prepared for is a laugh out loud one moment and honestly see a touching, heartfelt, look at old age and death and the end of one's life and what it means and one's legacy and these heavy subjects that I would not have guessed in a million years would have been present in a movie called fucking Bubba Hotep. Yet they were. Elegantly put, not forced, not there in a half-assed way, but done very gently with care and love. There's a nice little booklet, and Mr. Bruce Campbell gives a funny little anecdote. He was trying to prepare for the film, and he was talking about how he was working with this Elvis impersonator, and eventually the guy's like, "Listen, man, just do your thing, because you're not getting it." I think he gave I'm not a big Elvis fan myself, so I might not be the best judge, but I think he gave a good performance as Elvis. And the story is actually kind of funny, and again, it's touching in surprising ways about one's old age and death and how we view people who are elderly. I was not prepared for that, and the ending really is, I think, quite quite moving. And I think the mummy design is amazing. He looks awesome. I never thought a cowboy mummy would be something that would look as cool as he did in this film. But he did. One of my favorite lines is he like these little scarabs are running around attacking people. And so I guess the head of the nursing home is talking to Elvis, and he's like, "So you're saying was this big?" And funny, he goes, "Yeah, about the size of a peanut butter banana sandwich. I don't know. I got growth from my pecker. Leave me alone." it just the humor in this is spot on. It's funny, but like I said, it is also heartfelt. It also touches on like a lot of those really emotional beats of aging and growing old and everything. So, if you heard this concept like I did, they said that sounds idiotic and stupid and like nothing I'll have any interest in. When I say I was there, and I didn't watch this movie for years. One of my best friends told me about this movie. I told her that sounds stupid. John Fallon, who is I have a lot of respect for. I'm like, come on, you're over exaggerating. Someone paid you for this. I don't know. I just could not believe that people were giving this movie such high praise until I watched it and then it all made sense. I'm like, no, this movie is really, really that good. It's touching, it's moving, it's funny, it's a great film. And I implore you to watch it. At least one time. Um, Although you should definitely add this to your collection if you're a physical media collector, or if you're thinking about going to get into physical media, it just be one of your first buys. I don't think it's. I mean, obviously, I bought this years ago, so quite sure how much they're going for now, but I can't be that much. It's worth picking up. Next, Idle Hands. Now, this movie making somewhat of a comeback. Um, I remember seeing this when it first came out. I was young. This came out, what, 99, I think? Let's just say on here. Yep, 1999. And I may have saw it, maybe like 2000, 2001, but suffice it to say, I saw it when I was fairly young. I love this film. It is so funny. And I didn't watch it for years. You actually forgot about it until people started talking about it again. And I'm like, Idle Hands. I remember that film. So I went online to my surprise, but I was happy to see it wasn't going for that much money. So I picked it up, and I forgot that a very young Jessica Alba, I think before her breakout role in, had to be before Sin City, because Sin City was 04, 05. So yeah, I mean, look, if you see the front, Devon Sawa and Jessica Alba isn't even listed. Her picture's here, but she's not listed. Of course, after Sin City, she blew up. But so yeah, this is way before Sin City. I really enjoy this film. If you don't know, about a guy whose hand becomes possessed, literally, when the hand takes over and does horrible things while he's asleep. And so it's almost like an Evil Dead thing. He cuts off his hand, and the hand like thing from Adam Family just moves around by itself. And it's such an awesome concept. It's so funny. Like it is a mix of a few different things. If friends come back, it's very American Werewolf in London esque. The Evil Dead references. The hand coming to life. Adam Family. So there's a lot of um, other references to other films in here. But it still manages to be its own thing. It's a fun little movie. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's the best thing you ever watch, but it's funny and it has that late '90s, early 2000s feel. So if you're like me, if you're nostalgic for that time, this would be a great movie to scratch that itch and get that time period in its essence. This is such a good movie. A good, fun horror comedy that's like just That's perfect. Finally, we'll talk about Contagion. Now, if you want to say this is a horror film, please go fuck yourself. Because it absolutely is. I remember this movie got a lot of new fans and a lot of attention during the pandemic. People really was seeking out this film to watch. And it shows such brutal honesty. Not only how an infection will spread, but how unprepared they are for it. And how no one really knows what to do. Because you can have all the protocols in place, but when something's spreading, when something's going live, and think people are dying like by the millions, and you have other idiots like Jude Law's character who's spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories, and people believe in it. People, that's how we are as human beings. We hold on to hope. Someone can say something, and we just want to believe it because we want to hold on to that hope that it's true, that we can save ourselves, our loved ones, whatever. And this movie does not shy. It kills kids. It kills. I mean, Kate's Winslet doesn't make it. In an almost Scream-like way. Gwyneth Paltrow dies really early in the film. So this film doesn't care who you are. It kills anyone and everyone. Children, big stars, women. No one's safe. And this is such a disturbing film because it was so familiar and so realistic to how the real pandemic was in a lot of ways. So not only is it terrifying, it's terrifying in a way that feels all too familiar. And but it's a very good film. I think that's why most people don't call it a horror movie, because it was so well made. And it's like, horror movies gonna be well made. Like, don't sit there and buy into that shit. This is a well made, well acted, well directed film, but it's also a horror movie through and through. So, but definitely a disturbing watch, especially if you remember the pandemic. So I want to talk about for a second. I was in law enforcement during the pandemic. I was a sergeant at the Department of Corrections, and I watched people die. I was in the hospital, in the COVID wings, as people were dying on ventilators, as nurses were literally crying in the hallways over the stress, as doctors were walking around with that lost, distant, just way of looking when you're so overwhelmed and you have no fucking idea what to do. I was in a prison when inmates were dropping. I know, other than inmates, an officer who passed away, my assistant warden, one of them passed away. And I have a very close friend of mine. She was a school nurse for the school I worked at prior to becoming an officer. She passed away from it. I got it myself. People call it a flu. I think that's so fucking disingenuous. It wasn't a flu. I've had a flu. What this was a type of sickness I never had before. I was sick for a good 3 weeks. maybe a little bit more. I wasn't sure I was going to make it. There were days I'm lying there and I'm like, I wonder if I'll be able to see my kids and my wife tomorrow. Obviously, I did. But I know a lot of people who weren't so lucky. And the pandemic before that was 100 years. So a whole century since our last pandemic, a real pandemic, one that was on global proportions. I've been in, being in law enforcement, here's what I can tell you. When shit hits the fan, and I've been in those situations a couple of times, everyone knows how to react. Everyone knows what to do. Mike Tyson has a great quote. I think it's Mike Tyson. I don't want to misquote him. But there's a quote I heard. I believe it's Mike Tyson, but if it's not, forgive me. But his quote is, the quote goes something like this. This may not be word for word, but essentially it goes, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And it's great to do Monday morning quarterback, to look back and say, hey, you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have been done this way, you should have went. That's why I'll never be a actual film critic. I'll talk about things I like about and what I don't like about films. But I'll never critique anyone because you know what? It's easy to say, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that, but you don't know. You don't know what the budget constraints were. You don't know what the time constraint was. You don't know what the actors, if they were given the director problems, or the director was having problems, or whatever. I mean, so many variables. And the same thing with the pandemic. No one really knew what to do. You have protocols. You have things and there to help in case it was to happen. But when it actually happens, when you get into that ring and you get punched in the face, and make no mistake, WHO, CDC, every health disease, and you know, every organization that deals with these type of issues got punched in the face hard. And everything they had, protocol, every rule, regulation, went out the window. Because you never know how you're going to react in these type of situations. So I want to say I stand with Dr. Fauci. Did he make mistakes? Is he perfect? Is everything he did 100% by the book or exactly how he should have done it? I don't know. I do know he was a man faced with impossible odds in a once in a century situation. And he did the best he could. And I think we need to realize that more. It's easy for us to say years later, oh, you should have done this, and we should have been able to see our loved ones and our friends, and we should have been able to just walk around without social distancing and my mask, I had to wear a mask. I hated those fucking masks. I had to use force in a fucking hazmat suit on an inmate that freaked out because he was told he had corona and wanted to fight me and my officer, and we had to slam him to the ground in a biohazard suit, sweating. Now you're breathing hard, which is making it worse. God, I think about that now. Jesus Christ. It was a horrible time. But he did the best he could. And I think instead of trying to demonize him, crucify him, maybe we should thank him. As imperfect as he may be. But that's just my 2 cents. Anyway, with that being said, these are the 5 movies for today. All of them worth a view, and I think all these movies are great. Even Splice, which was a little weird, kind of uncomfortable, but I still love the premise. I love those, is it not okay to pursue science? 101's moralities, when they're challenged, how far are you willing to go, or how far are you willing to go past them? All those type of things I think are so interesting. But yeah, so thank you for watching. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts. If you've seen these movies, if you like them, if you enjoy them, let me know. Have a good day. Be safe, and until next time.